first few minutes of a film are often treated like a handshake. Polite, functional, sometimes forgettable. But in truth, they're closer to a thesis statement. They quietly prime us, shape our expectations, and lay a foundation the rest of the film will spend its runtime expanding, contradicting, or haunting. Some directors use these opening minutes as mood setters, some as misdirects, and some as pure exposition. And then there are filmmakers who use them like a hidden code, embedding the entire architecture of the film in a sequence so unassuming you only realize its significance in hindsight. Which brings us to Kurosawa, not the legendary samurai and crime filmmaker, and not the experimental fever dream maker either. I mean the quiet nightmare Kurosawa. Kiyoshi Kurosawa is among my favorite filmmakers precisely because he understands the power of those opening minutes better than almost anyone else working today. His horror doesn't rely on jump scares or grotesque imagery. Instead, it materializes slowly through stillness and atmosphere and a kind of existential static humming beneath every frame. Although he's most famous for his horror films, his work spirals across genre lines. Yakuza dramas, family tragedies, whatever charisma is. And in each one, he finds a way to discomfort you without ever raising his voice. His stories wander outside genre boundaries the same way his characters wander through empty streets, quietly, unsettlingly, with a sense that something huge and invisible is creeping just out of frame. And more often than not, his films end with some sort of collapse, mass destruction, societal breakdown, or a quiet realization that the apocalypse has already begun. But here's the part that fascinates me the most. People sometimes say that his descents into chaos come out of nowhere. They don't. In fact, I'd argue the opposite. Kiyoshi Kurosawa tells you almost everything you need to know about a film in the first 5 minutes. Once you start noticing it, you can't unsee it. These strange, awkward, sometimes disconnected openings are actually preambles that reveal the film's core idea, its beating heart. I call this the Kiyoshi Open. Let's walk through a few examples. Serpents Path opens with 2 men driving in grim silence. They're preparing for a kidnapping, a revenge mission for a murdered daughter. And then comes the line that unlocks the entire film. One man asks if they're sure they have the right guy. The other replies, they're all involved anyway. That line is the film. It's the thesis. His revenge isn't about precision here. It's indiscriminate. Anyone orbiting the original crime is automatically guilty. And throughout the film, that's exactly what happens. They kidnap and kill Yakuza members one after another, regardless of their direct involvement. By the finale, that initial logic returns in devastating form. The Kiyoshi Open wasn't just foreshadowing, it was a confession. If Serpents Path states its theme bluntly, Charisma states it cryptically. In the opening hostage scene, Detective Yabake is given the film's core directive: restore the rules of the world. Moments later, he hesitates to shoot the hostage taker because, as he says later, I wanted to help them both. These two ideas collide throughout the rest of the film as Yabake confronts the dilemma of the forest and a singular, mysterious, and unique tree known as charisma. Save the forest or save the tree, which is morally correct? The opening already told us Yabake's flaw. He wants to save everything, and, as the film makes painfully clear, trying to preserve both ultimately destroys them. The Kiyoshi Open doesn't just set the stage, it reveals the tragedy. Bright Future starts with Yuji talking about peaceful dreams that used to comfort him, and how they've suddenly stopped. His frustration spills out in unreasonable ways. snapping at people in a restaurant, pushing a stranger, simmering with an unfocused anger. Then comes the introduction of the venomous jellyfish and the warning, don't mock the jellyfish's venom. The whole film grows out of this opening, disillusioned youth, directionless rage, and the deadly consequences of ignoring the danger beneath the seemingly calm surface. The jellyfish isn't just an animal, it's a metaphor for the discontent that Yuji embodies. The Kiyoshi Open says all of this quietly, almost casually, and then the film proves it. Sometimes the Kiyoshi Open doesn't even involve major characters. In Séance, the film's supernatural highlight, a doppelganger, comes from a conversation between two characters who never appear again. In Cure, Kurosawa's masterpiece, the film opens not with murder or hypnosis, but with a seemingly unrelated scene, the protagonist's wife reading the story of Bluebeard to a psychiatrist. She claims to already know the ending. The woman kills Bluebeard. Why? Because of his one notable flaw, his blue beard. That's the entire structure of Cure in one moment. People throughout the film commit murders against perfectly ordinary victims who simply have some tiny, irrational flaw. No meaning, no motive, just the strange human desire to assign significance where there is none. People like to think a crime has some meaning, a psychologist says later, but most of them don't. The Kiyoshi Open said it first. Now, I wish I could say every Kurosawa film features a perfect Kiyoshi Open, but that's not the case. Some entries stretch the definition. For example, Pulse's greenhouse scene somewhat connects with the dot algorithm, portraying how people drift apart, then are suddenly, almost supernaturally, drawn back together. Then one of the dots will die. A depressing concept that flows throughout the whole film. Or in Eyes of the Spider, where the theme of violence becoming routine is played out as a man commits murder, then returns home as if he just went through a day of work. But these are looser versions of the Kiyoshi Open. Other films abandon the structure entirely. Retribution opens with the central murder. Creepy hints at themes of personal morality, but not quite in a way that forms a true Kiyoshi Open. Still, when it's there, it's unmistakable. What makes all of this so fascinating is that nobody really talks about it. The man has been making horror, crime films, domestic tragedies, and genre hybrids for decades. Yet the precision of his openings, the way he can encode the entire film into small, quiet moments, goes largely unnoticed. If you're a fan, or any of this has piqued your curiosity, I'd recommend Jerry White's Master of Fear, and, more importantly, diving into as many Kiyoshi Kurosawa films as possible. Because once you see the Kiyoshi Open in action, you start to understand just how brilliantly he constructs his nightmares. He doesn't just make horror, he makes prophecies, and he hides them in the first 5 minutes.